I'm sorry, why would we have sex?
Because I'm having sex with everyone here! Let's do it!
Alright, let's make this quick since a lot of you know the deal already.
I got places to be. Josh has to leave in 4 minutes.
But just in case you don't know, I like to look through different channels and streaming services to review and rank their catalogs of adult animation. Gives me a chance to watch anything I miss, and it gives you a chance to maybe discover a new favorite show that flew under the radar. It's a win-win. Plus, I get paid, so it's a win-win-win, with the win stacked in my favor. And you know I like things stacked. Today, we're looking at the offerings of Amazon Prime, which was probably my least used service. But ever since they actually got a functioning UI and started cranking out better originals than Netflix, my opinion on old Jeffy B's little rinky-dink video platform has changed.
Amazon Prime, like the 8th best way to watch TV.
And now, they even have a pretty solid collection of adult cartoons for me to get my grubby little nubs. What are these, nubs? We're gonna call them nubs. Anyway, join me as we go over every adult cartoon that Prime has put out, not counting that new one that's coming out soon. Yes, I know the video will be outdated, I will make a tweet later. I'm your host and strangely in shape CEO, D'Angelo Edwards, and today we're ranking the Amazon Prime adult cartoons. I gave up on the hats off part, it'll never work with these.
Genius. It goes bump, click, bump, click, bump.
We need more bad guys to smash.
Click, bump. I be Lord of the Rings, I manifest. Represent from the den, I don't wear no vest. I got a heart in my chest, it goes bump. I sway halfway, the days hump, get over. I be Lord of the Rings, I manifest.
I'll put a shot to your
sister. I don't wear no vest. I got a heart in my chest, it goes bump. I sway halfway, the days hump, get over. One out the ring, so now you got.
What the fuck are you doing?
I'm just asking for help from a few new friends.
That's your fucking power? You can control shit?
Well, it's better than yours, dick face.
Alright, bottom of the list is always hardest to hear, because no matter what, someone is going to be disappointed. Lucky for me, I shed my empathy centuries ago. Years. Ranking at the bottom of the list is The Boys Present Diabolical. Now, I'm a big fan of The Boys, at least the show. I hear the comic hasn't aged the best. It's one of the few superheroes, but bad, things that I actually like, mainly due to how likable the cast is and how crazy it can get. And the show got popular really fast. And as with any popular thing, they are going to find out how to milk it. And what better way to still get something out during a pandemic than by dropping the meat bags and going animated. Diabolical is an 8-episode anthology taking place in the Boys universe. Every episode focuses on a different group of characters and features a different art style. And it being an anthology kind of explains why it takes the bottom spot. Now, I love anthologies since it's a cool way to get out a lot of stories at once, like buying a box of chocolates. But when you buy a box of chocolates, you're bound to get a few coconuts. And that's my main problem with The Boys. I just like some of the shorts more than others, and some I flat out don't like. But let's start off with the positives. Seeing all these different art styles and sensibilities is really cool, and it's always one of my favorite parts of an animated anthology. There's such a cool variety too. One moment you'll be watching one that feels ripped straight out of Animaniacs, and the next you'll be watching a classic superhero show. There's even some curveballs in there, like a style more akin to French animation, with the textured lines and soft flowy movements, and even Korean-styled Ani, dripping with detail and dark atmosphere. Even if there is nothing for you here story-wise, the animation itself is on point, at least for the most part. I wasn't the biggest fan of how BFFs look, a little too how to draw anime for me, and I wish they hadn't just made a The Boys but drawn in Rick and Morty style episode. I just think that spot could have gone to a more unique choice, and it really just felt like a move done for the press. As for the stories themselves, they're also a mixed bag. I think the weakest are the previously mentioned Rick and Morty episode, which just felt like an excuse excuse for crude jokes with a pretty thin setup, and while I think Laser Baby's Day Out is charming, it runs a little too long for something styled after a Looney Tunes short, so it kinda drags for a bit. But there are some that are really good. John and Sun Hee is the tragic tale of a man running out of options to treat his sick wife, so he steals some of the serum that gives the superheroes powers, only to have it cause more harm than good, ruining what little time he has left with her. I was genuinely shocked how they managed to put such emotion into something less than 15 minutes. And the ending almost got some tears out of me. Another favorite is 1 + 1 = 2, which actually had me wanting a Homelander prequel, and I usually can't stand prequels. It's funny, I think when the show does something that's mostly drama focused instead of comedy, it lands better for me. Overall, I do think there is more good here than bad, but Amazon actually ended up having some heavy hitters, so this one still ends up ranked last. But there is a lot of talent and effort on display here, and I still think it's worth watching. I wouldn't even mind another season. You know, as long as it doesn't get in the way of season 4 of The Boys. I'm jonesing over here.
Mark, you have to scare him. Make him think you'll actually drop him.
I can hear you!
I don't know, that seems mean.
All right, here, I'll show you.
Okay, I want to say straight up that these next 3 shows are so close, they could all change places by how I feel that day, so no one get mad at me. Or, you know, do. Mean comments still equal engagement. But next up, even shocking me, is Invincible. Created by Robert Kirkman, Corey Walker, and Ryan Otley, Invincible is an animated superhero show based on the Image comic of the same name. Quick side note, if you want to learn more about Image comics, I highly recommend the Image Revolution. It's kinda crazy. Comic artists used to live like rock stars, and I find that really fascinating. Now, I never really read Invincible before the show came out, but I had always heard of it, since a lot of people were calling it one of the best superhero comics ever. And now that I've read some of the comics and watched the show, while I wouldn't go that far, I can see why it got so much praise. The show follows Mark Grayson, the half-alien son of Omni-Man, who's basically just this universe's version of Superman. Mark is just a normal kid, living life with his mom, super dad, and his friends, until finally, his powers kick in. Now, he's training to follow in his father's footsteps and become... One problem with that, though.
And developed symptoms similar to those displayed by their attack.
Yeah, this is the story of a boy trying to be a hero after learning that his father is an alien fascist that was sent to take over the planet for his race, which we find out after he turns the world's greatest superheroes into fruit punch. Extra pulp. I remember being hooked after the first episode, and now 2 seasons in, I can say that's a really fun ride. The world is familiar but distinct enough. It feels like a superhero show that acknowledges that, yeah, if superheroes were around in the real world, they probably wouldn't all be squeaky clean beacons of righteousness. But at the same time, it's not so nihilistic that it forgets to have fun in a show about people in tights punching other people in tights. It's self-aware, but not to a fault. I like the characters too. Mark's initial enthusiasm about being a hero is infectious, and he seems like a really likable kid. Steven Yeun has always been a favorite of mine ever since he was in The Walking Dead, which funny enough was another Kirkman comic, and he does a great job here too. I love how the show goes out of its way to show how unprepared Mark is for the superhero world. He doesn't just get a costume and immediately become a perfect force for good. He gets the tar beat out of him, like badly, all the time. The show even recognizes that he's really not all that good at this.
I'm Alan, by the way.
Invincible.
Oh, yeah? Little optimistic, isn't it?
Yeah, I know.
I just fought you and I think you're quite invincible.
I mean, it makes sense. You can have all the power in the world, but unless you know how to use it, people with more experience are always going to be better. A lesson that Mark learns in between kissing the asphalt. Besides Mark, you have his mother, who loves her family more than anything, but starts to waver after more and more secrets are revealed about her husband. I loved how quickly she went into action. Instead of just taking everything Omni-Man said at face value, really showed that she has a good head on her shoulders. Mark's best friend William is funny and helps to keep Mark grounded in the civilian world, he also goes through one of the saddest moments of the show. And after Omni-Man obliterates the old Guardians of the Globe, we get a whole new team of characters to get to know. My favorites being Monster Girl, a girl who can transform into an ogre at the cost of aging backwards, and Adam Eve, who becomes Mark's best friend on the superhero side. And you can't forget Omni-Man himself, played by Just Kidding Simmons. I always loved hearing him and stuff, and he does a great job here playing a perfect dad pretending to be a perfect dad. He's really good at showing the cracks, as he tries to push Mark into his militaristic ways. All of these characters in this familiar but interesting setting make for a pretty good watch. I was happy to see that the episodes were longer than your average action cartoon. It gives enough time to focus on the character stuff, while still cramming a lot of action in it. It made almost every episode satisfying to watch. I'd be interested in seeing more action shows take up this model, but there are a few things that keep it from placing higher on the list. The animation, while solid and at sometimes downright impressive, mostly feels like stuff I've seen before. It's in that Young Justice and Ben 10 camp of Western action cartoons. It's not bad, and I like that style, but I do wish it took a bit more of a risk. It is cool though that after Invincible became a hit, it led to Skybound, the company that makes Invincible, bolstering its animation team into a healthy 200-person studio. Anything that leads to more animation jobs is okay in my book. While the show was interesting from the start, with several big moments to get you hooked, I do think that Mark doesn't start off as the most engaging protagonist. He kinda gets outshined by a lot of the characters around him, but I think that's just part of the growing pains of the first season, and the back half of episodes improves things a lot. You get to see just how much he wants to live up to his dad's perceived image, and how much he's willing to push himself as long as it means he's keeping people safe. And when he finally learns the truth about the kind of man his dad is, you feel just as devastated as he does. Once this show gets going, it really doesn't stop. And season 2 looks to be more of the same, fleshing out Mark even more, while raising the stakes to the limit. Invincible might not stand out that much on the style side, but with a solid flair and characters that only improve as you go, it's definitely worth the watch.
Well, I saw him take one of the box tees to the back. Then the dream is still alive. Come on, fam. We got work to do. Let's fucking build!
Dab.
No. That ain't it.
Nobody dabs anymore, Dale. Jesus.
Time for the show that actually ended up being the dark horse of the video. I can't believe I'm saying this, but I ended up loving Fairfax. From the show's premise, you would not think this is something I would be into. A show about a group of kids obsessed with hypebeast culture getting into trouble and crafting schemes to snag the latest drops? It's like if Ed, Edd n Eddy was all about drip instead of jawbreakers. But I was shocked to find out that underneath all the Supreme and Gucci, Fairfax is really a show about celebrating your interests and the friendships that can come from those interests. The show focuses on Dale, a young boy who has just moved to California and would rather go for a hike than chase a trend. But after meeting a group of kids that introduce him into the world of Latrine, this world's premier brand, he decides to go all out on clout and try to become a trendsetter, but in his own Boy Scout way.
Good night, Instagram.
No one wishes Instagram good night, you noob.
What immediately drew me to the series was the art style and how unique it looked. I love me a show that uses colors to the fullest. Everything in the world just pops and reeks of aesthetic. I haven't seen the show use abstract colors this well since the old MTV days. Most of the time I'm raving about how cool night scenes look, but this show really made me appreciate the color palette of sunset. Seeing the whole world dyed in those light pinks. This is the stuff I live for. The character designs took a little getting used to for me, but I grew to really appreciate them. They're a lot more unique than your standard adult cartoon characters, and I like that they drew the eyes with bigger black circles instead of the tiny dots you always see everywhere. Everything has just the right amount of detail too, and the uniform line weight makes it feel slick and soft, adding to the chill vibe of the show. The look of the show was done by the artist Some Hoodlum, who you might recognize from the work he's done on album covers and clothing stores, which makes sense considering the show. His work has got such a fun style to it, kinda pop, kinda retro, and yet completely his own. I love when a show leads me to a cool new artist to follow, and to steal techniques from. But anyway, back to the show. As it went on, I really grew to love these characters. Dale is the sweetheart that sometimes gets a little too into the hypebeast lifestyle, but he always returns to the same old Dale by the end of it, and you just kind of want him to be okay.
Hey, Trill, film this. Rain stick dunk!
Hey, bro! You can see how his friends adopted him so quickly. His good nature is really infectious. Speaking of, the rest of his gang are great too. Derica is a tough-as-nails activist, and Truman is a kid with dreams of making it big as a movie director, known for avant-garde pieces.
Welcome to the first day of Untitled Shit Project.
Yo! Yeah.
Big ups to the gods, Spike, Ava, and iCarly for the inspiration.
He's joined by partner in crime, Benny, the most fashion-obsessed member of the group. I love that instead of immediately being turned off by Dale's lack of knowledge, he basically just takes him under his wing.
All right, so a drop is... How do I put this in Caucasian? A drop is when someone puts out new shit.
It's like, if milk suddenly came out with a 3%.
He gets some of my favorite episodes of the show, and besides Dale, he's the character whose family life we see the most of, as he juggles his love of streetwear with his overbearing mother's expectations. I don't care what anyone says, but watching him play God's Plan on cello while his friends were having a kung fu battle with their principal on a moving truck, that is cinema. There are way too many fun side characters to count too. Like the aforementioned, I gotta calm down, who am I trying to impress? Their principal is hilarious, and joins Principal Lewis on the list of great black animated principals. And Dale's parents never fail to make me smile. Look at that white man and his black queen. And the way the story progressed was so interesting. I didn't even expect this thing to have a story, but once it kicked into gear, I was more strapped in than Anastasia. But if I keep talking, I'm never gonna stop. So I'll save it for a full review, because you can bet I'll be giving it a deeper look. I had no idea I would love this so much, that the characters will worm their way into my heart this deep. This show is about Gen Z, you guys scare me, but the colors are amazing, the themes of friendship made me cry, and I didn't mention it earlier, but this show has some really impressive rigged animation. I couldn't believe some of these shots. I really did end up enjoying Fairfax a lot, and while there hasn't been any news of a third season, I really hope I don't have to wait too long for a new drop.
You know what else I love? All my new friends on social media. What a fun place with absolutely zero consequences.
Hi, I'm Charlie. My dad asked me if I could meet you.
Yeah, I know.
Okay, well, it's nice to meet you.
Totally. Nice to meet you too. Ah, I fucking got you. Did you fucking see that? Good shit.
Oh my god, I do not care what anyone has to say about this show. You can dislike the video, you can leave an essay in the comments that I won't read. I do not care, because I am in love with Hazbin Hotel.
Take that, depression!
It has been so long since I've had this feeling watching a cartoon. Just like pure joy on my face from start to finish. And the minute I see credits, I'm running laps, knocking over furniture and yelling. Now I know the internet has feelings on VivziePop, but this is not the video for talking about this, because Viv just shoved her composition notebook of OC drawings in my face, and I couldn't be happier with the result. First of all, it's a miracle that this thing even exists. This is like one of the first things of its kind, a crowd-funded indie pilot that found enormous success and is now a fully fledged series backed by one of the biggest companies in the world. This is 100% a crazy anomaly, but the fact that it happened at all is such a cool first step. I wouldn't call myself a Vivzy Pop superfan or anything. I thought the pilot was kind of okay, but super impressive. And I think Helluva Boss is pretty good, especially Millie. So when I heard news that Hazbin had been picked up by Amazon, I thought I was gonna get an alright show. Something to pass the weekend with. And now here I stand after listening to Stayed Gone and You Didn't Know more times than I can count. I'm not joking. I ran out of numbers, I know. This thing is so full of personality and charm, it almost makes me wonder what I've been watching for the past 5 years. It has been so long since I've felt the creators' mitts all over their product, and man did I miss that feeling.
Whoa! Badass! Awesome job, Danger Tits. Found it.
And if you haven't given it a try yet, I'm going to do my best to convince you to give it a watch. Hazbin Hotel follows Charlie, the daughter of the devil. After centuries of a periodical cleansing of hell by the forces of heaven, Charlie comes up with the idea of instead of destroying the extra souls in hell, she instead wants to redeem them so they can get up to heaven. With the help of her girlfriend Vaggie and the mysterious radio demon Alistair, she opens up a facility where sinners of all types can live and learn to be a decent member of society, the Hazbin Hotel.
It was actually my idea.
Well, it's not very clever.
Fuck you.
Okay.
It's a really interesting premise, and as you get to know Charlie and all the other characters that end up flocking to her side, it's an idea that you really hope succeeds. It has been a while since I fell in love with a cast like this, which is nuts because I wasn't that crazy about them in the original pilot, but the series does a great job at endearing you to them. And very quickly, Charlie is this ball of positive energy, and while that archetype seems a little overstuffed lately, Charlie has a refreshing edge to her.
Fuck you old bitch!
You know, probably since she's like a demon, but hey, who's to say? She's also such an adorable goofball, always trying to see the best in people and getting them to see the best in themselves. It's so rare that I like the main character of a show as much as some of the side characters, but Charlie is a delight.
I am the princess of Hell, Angel, and I go where I please. I'm here to get you some time off for the hotel.
And the rest of the cast is just as good. Vaggie is a caring and doting girlfriend to Charlie, always fussing over her and making sure she's okay, even if she has to stab a hoe. Angel Dust was a real surprise too. I did not think I would be that into him, but after a look into his past traumas and him actually trying to better himself, without doing a complete 180 on his personality, I would protect this twink with my life. Alistair is super cool in that 14-year-old fresh at a Hot Topic kind of way. And I don't mean that as an insult. I had an OC called Damien the Hellhog. You think I'm gonna not love the edgy deer guy? I was born of the edge. My favorite character of the show actually ended up being Serpentious, this dumb snake dude that I love with all my heart. He's just such a screw-up that's trying his best that I can't help but adore him.
Oh, you and me are going out? Like, for fun? I didn't think this would ever happen.
He can do no wrong, and I want only the best for him. Let me see, am I missing any other favorite characters? Charlie's dad is great. Just a short king trying his best to have a relationship with his daughter.
Oh, this is the first time she's called you in years. This has to be perfect.
Hey, bitch!
And the voice cast they got for this thing is a 10 out of 10 if you're a theater nerd like me. Erica Henningsen, Alex Brightman, Keith David? Keith could make a slur sound good, David? Shut up and take my money. Whoa, hold on now. Vivzy's art style is always going to divide people, and I'm not going to hold it against you if it's not your cup of tea, but I really like it. All of the characters are so expressive and unique. Yeah, some are a bit over-designed, but in this minimalist hellhole we've dug ourselves into lately with animation, I don't really mind it. At least if the chicken is over-seasoned, you can still taste it, right? And don't even get me started on the soundtrack, dude.
Have some of these bangers, why don't ya?
If Spotify was a cassette tape, it would have disintegrated by now. I have no joke lost hours to this OST. It had me flashing back to my jailbreak days. While the first few episodes are a little rough around the edges, everything from episode 4 onwards is just pure great television. The plot does move a little fast, but that never really bothered me. It feels more like the pacing of a miniseries than a traditional TV show, which I don't think is a bad thing. They do make sure to spend some time just hanging with the characters, and while I do think the show could have benefited from a few more downtime episodes, I'm pretty satisfied with what I got. I'm not going to go into any specifics with the story, but the way the plot unfolds had me on the edge of my seat, and by the time that final music number rolled on the last episode of the season, I'm pretty sure the energy I was giving off could power a small nation. If you couldn't tell by now, I really enjoyed Hazbin Hotel, and judging by how the next season plays, I could easily see this one moving up on my list. I think what it all comes down to is that I'm just so excited to finally watch a cartoon that just reeks of its creator. Something that is so clearly created by and loved by people. And sure, it's not perfect. There are flaws all over it, but those flaws only make it more real. All those nicks and scratches give it traction, while all this safe and smooth down stuff slides right out of your brain. Some of the storyboarding and timing is nonsensical. This thing moves lightning fast, which can be a turnoff for some people, and sometimes it can be edgy and crass to a fault. And I think it's perfectly understandable if this just isn't your cup of tea, but it's definitely mine and a ton of other people. This thing is real. It knows what it is and it revels in it. And there was never a chance in hell that I wasn't gonna love something with so much of the creator in it. Hazbin Hotel gave me a glimpse into how cartoons could feel special again. And judging by the crazy numbers it's pulling, I think a lot of other people will agree. And I hope that networks and streaming services pay real close attention to it, because this show could very well start a redemption arc for adult TV animation.
Sometimes I'll be in the store and I'll be looking at 2 different cans of beans and I'll think, these beans are better. No, these beans are better. And then I'll think, that's the most boring thought anyone's ever had. I mean, God, everything is pointless. Anyway.
Alright, coming in at the number 2 spot is a show I really haven't seen many people talk about, and it's crazy because this show, both in animation and story, is genuinely a beautiful piece of art. Have you ever wanted to change something in your life? Maybe ask out that girl or learn that language. Or maybe something more serious that could possibly save the life of someone you care about. All of that and more is tackled in Undone. Undone is a jaw-droppingly gorgeous show that might be the best representation of time travel in media that I've ever seen. Time travel will never make sense to me. I usually just have to unplug my brain and meet whatever time travel thing I'm watching on its level. But with Undone, I almost understood what they were talking about. Almost. I'm still a little fuzzy on it, but I'm close. And in between the time travel, you're also treated to one of the most engaging and personal stories about a family that I have ever seen, animated or otherwise. But I'm getting ahead of myself. The series follows Alma, a woman who has basically grown tired of living life. Every day feels the same, everyone around her seems to be moving on, and Alma just can't ever see herself being happy in life. Just when she's reaching her breaking point, she gets into an accident, and after waking up, she finds herself unstuck in time, reliving moments, going back and forth between the years, and seeing visions of her dad, who was supposed to have died decades ago. From this point on, we go on adventures with Alma, as her dad teaches her to control her powers, while also finding out that maybe his death was something that could have been avoided. I was spellbound by this show, dude. It has been a while since characters just felt so real. The dynamics of Alma's family, the depictions of different disabilities and mental illnesses, and just one of the most believable relationships I have ever seen.
What are you doing? I'm humping your butt. Oh.
All of this is bolstered by the gorgeous animation style they went with. I have never seen rotoscoping used to this effect, and it creates such a surreal and ethereal feeling. It's not just used as a shortcut, they genuinely wanted to take real life and enhance it. The animation was overseen by Dutch painter and animator Hisco Holsing, who did his best to make sure that this show felt like a painting come to life. They spent months training dozens of classically trained painters to paint in his style, which led to some breathtaking backgrounds. They would then take these paintings and project them into 3D. Then with a little compositing magic, they made a show that looks so pretty and so weird that it feels like watching a dream. I promise that even if you only want to watch this show for the animation, that is reason enough. I was blown away. It's also been a while since I've related to a character like Alma, a character just going through the motions, afraid of getting stuck, afraid of getting people stuck with her. She's funny and charming, but there is such an underlying fear and sadness to her that it instantly endeared her to me. And the way that they use time travel, instead of explaining it like moving between points in time, they show it as viewing all of time itself from a vantage point. It felt like such a unique and smart way to do it, and somehow it makes sense. I also love how much this show delves into Mexican culture and the relationship with spirituality. It's all just really interesting, and they do a great job balancing all that with the more grounded family stuff. I'm going to keep this section as short as I can because out of everything on the list, this is the show I want you guys to watch the most. It is truly something special in its animation, story, characters, and themes, and I beg you to give it a try. I can't believe this was the first adult cartoon greenlit by Amazon because they knocked it out of the park. If you want something that feels truly special, Undone is definitely the show for you.
Brave warriors are we and far more clever than a fox. They'll tell of our exploits in the legend of Vox Machina.
Oh, thank you very much.
And here we are again, at the top of the list. As always, this ranking is completely based on my opinion and my taste. And at this point, a lot of you pretty much know what I tend to favor.
Sex and violence on television.
Yeah, that stuff. And when presented in such a polished and entertaining package as this, there was no way my favorite show on Amazon Prime would be anything else but The Legends of Vox Machina. It's got action, it's got heart, it's got a group of characters that rival my love for the Straw Hat crew, and all of that is wrapped up in some of the most impressive animation this side of a Castlevania climax. I love action shows. I love D&D. And now that they're finally together, I'm happy to say this is not only at my #1 spot for Prime, it's one of my favorite shows in general. If you weren't aware, this show began as the widely successful podcast Critical Role, an actual play D&D podcast full of super talented voice actors. I've always been interested in it, and I've listened to a few episodes, but there are a lot of people talking at the same time, and I'm not the best at focus. But since I'm not that familiar with the podcast, I thought to myself, who better to talk about it than my own dungeon master? Take it away, Micah.
Hi, I'm Micah. I'm D'Angelo's DM, and I'm also a game developer and an animator. Anyway, I'm going to talk to you about the show behind the show, The Legend of Vox Machina, Critical Role. Critical Role is a live D&D show where a bunch of nerdy voice actors sit around and play Dungeons & Dragons. It started as a show on Geek & Sundry when Felicia Day asked Matthew Mercer, the DM for Critical Role, for a D&D show on her channel, the aforementioned Geek & Sundry. In their home game, they were playing Pathfinder before the transition. They modified it to fit the distant Dungeons & Dragons, which from this point onward, I'll call 5e, because I'm not an evil person. Anyway, the first campaign started in 2015 and was about a group called Vox Machina, going from ragtag group of adventurers to heroes of the realm, plural. The campaign had about 115 episodes, each about 4 hours in length, and aired almost every Thursday on twitch.tv. And I watched all of them, willingly. I'm only here so Diabolical doesn't have to watch through hundreds of hours of content. Since apparently, he can't watch approximately 28,000 minutes / 400 plus hours of content for a 10-minute or less segment of his video.
No, I'm sleepy.
Anyway, the campaign ended back in 2017. Then a few years later, the crew wanted to make an animated series because they're voice actors and live for that stuff. They pitched it to a couple of companies who rejected it. Then they made a very successful Kickstarter to which those companies who had rejected them felt like dummies. Then the money people at Amazon were like,
oh snap, I want some of that.
Now we have The Legend of Vox Machina on Amazon Video, and their second campaign, The Mighty Nine, also coming to Amazon Video. Critical Role is a powerhouse of friends making a company out of doing something that they love. And that's basically, in a nutshell, all you need to know for the rest of this segment of the video.
Alright, get that nerd out of here. Camera back on the star. Let's actually get to the show. Vox Machina focuses on a group of adventurers fighting together under the same name. And by adventurers, I mean screw-ups. And by screw-ups, I mean f**k-ups. You have Vex and Vax Vessar, twins who fled from their noble upbringing after years of mistreatment. Percy the Rolo, a gunslinging fighter on a quest for revenge. Pike Trickfoot, a cleric with a taste for booze and brawls. Keyleth, a self-doubting druid on a journey to prove herself. Grog Strongjaw, a barbarian in every sense of the word. And Scanlan, a bard that lives up to every stereotype a bard has, even creating some new ones in the process. And I know this sounds like a lot of characters to get through, but somehow this show just does it. By the time the second season wrapped up, I felt like I had a solid grasp on all their goals, personalities, how they felt about each other, and even the reason they all stay together. I think what I appreciate most of all about this show is that this group feels like a bunch of actual friends. I know a lot of that comes from the fact that all the voice actors are friends in real life, in addition to running a podcast together for years, but the writing is just so good when it comes to them hanging out. They know each other's quirks, they're constantly poking fun at each other, and you can tell that any of them would risk their lives for each other. Just watching all their different ideologies and personalities clash is a ton of fun, almost as much as all the fighting. I think my favorite characters are Percy, Pike, and of course Scanlan. Percy is such a little edgelord. He's the exact type of character I would have gravitated to as a kid. Pike is the heart of the group, all while being a powerhouse in her own right. And don't even get me started on Scanlan. Every moment he was on screen, I was either cackling, crying, or cheering my little heart out for him. I have never seen a pervert with such a heart of gold. No notes, best character in the show. And the rest of the characters are no slouches either. I love watching all their individual journeys meld with the bigger narrative at hand, as all the threats and challenges they face get bigger and stronger. And it's nice to see actual dragons in a D&D show, like multiple, and they are a constant threat that you genuinely start to fear. This world feels so alive and well thought out too. A good D&D campaign lives and dies by the characters it's full of, and this show has some great ones. Particular shout out to Sean, a magic owner that always aids the group. He is so much fun, and I hope he shows up more in the show. Also, another thing I like is that the group is constantly getting new items and weapons. Really adds to that D&D feeling. And I said it before, but the animation goes crazy in this thing. It's so dynamic and well storyboarded. There's always so much going on, but it's also clear and impactful, and oh my god, is it time for season 3 yet? It is truly some of Titmouse's finest work. If you are an action fan or a D&D fan or just a fan of awesome found family dynamics, The Legend of Vox Machina will deliver all of that in spades. If you haven't seen it yet, 1, I'm super jealous, and 2, go watch it right now. It is nothing less than a critical success. And so the rankings for the Amazon adult animated shows goes as follows. At the bottom, we have The Boys' Diabolical, followed by Invincible. Next up is Fairfax, then Hazbin Hotel, Undone, and taking the top spot is The Legends of Vox Machina. But all in all, what a stellar list of cartoons. The quality between all of these is so consistent. If this was a lineup on a channel, it would be my favorite channel, hands down. And such a good variety of shows too. I think there's something for everybody here. If these are the kind of things Jeffy Boy is greenlighting, maybe he actually deserves that flying penis. This was truly a delight to go through, and I hope that all of the wonderful artists, writers, and creators for all of these shows know how good of a job they did. Overall, I think this is my favorite library of adult cartoons that I've looked at so far, and I hope they'll continue to keep putting out bangers. It's nice to see creativity, innovation, and passion still exist in the world of animation, and I know that as long as shows like this keep being made, we have got a bright future to look forward to. You know, as long as the planet holds up. We got a solid 10 years left. There's time for a few more cartoons.